Hey guys, this is Al. I'm with my 68 Cadillac Convertible. I wanted to give you a quick update on this car because I solved a pretty serious vapor lock problem with it, and I thought it would be worthwhile talking about it because if you suffer this kind of issue, it could be a real problem, like it could leave you stranded. So initially I thought it was vapor lock, but because the car wouldn't start at all, after a while it wouldn't start unless I kept on pouring gas down the throat. I began to think it may be the fuel pump, and let me show you what I did. Of course I replaced the fuel pump, so I'll just explain how I replaced it. It's a pretty straightforward job, and then I'll explain the things that I was seeing before that I don't see anymore and I don't notice anymore, which could help somebody troubleshoot this problem if they run into it. So before, when the engine would run, this glass filter would always be half full. Right? You can kind of see it, basically fuel flowing through. And then you knew that there was a problem with the carburetor. The reason it wouldn't start is because this guy would be completely empty. So that would give me the indication that there was some kind of vapor lock. And then when the car started, it basically sucked in everything inside this filter, and then there was nothing left, and the car would die. So it would run for a few seconds, and then it would die off. So that was the symptom that I was getting. And what I would do is I would pour fuel down the throat of the carburetor, and eventually this would pump back up and the car would start running and everything would be fine. Is the fuel pump. You can get it to it pretty easily from underneath, but there's really just one inlet and one outlet. It's held together by a nut on the bottom and a bolt on top, and there's a gasket that basically mates the surface of the fuel pump to the surface of the engine block. Now, it's very hard to screw it up, but basically you've got to be careful that you put the lever arm on the fuel pump in such a place where it's basically touching the lobe of the camshaft and not somewhere else where it could be damaged. So that's about the only thing that you need to do. For me, it was pretty easy going in. I guess if it doesn't go in right, you'll know because it wouldn't mate upright. You just try not to force it, just figure out what's wrong. This actual system has a return in it, and there's a filter. Well, you can see here that there's a filter. The filter has two lines. This actually gave me the idea of why I thought that there's probably not a vapor lock issue, because that kind of filter basically has a vapor line, which is that second line that comes out the filter that sends fuel vapors back to the tank. So it should really never vapor lock, right? If it vaporizes, it should go straight back to the tank. The tank actually has a return, and the two lines go into the front subframe, and you'll see that from underneath if you have one of these cars. But when I saw that filter, I kind of had an idea that there shouldn't be vapor lock on this car, because that should really solve the problem. So I ended up replacing the fuel pump. The fuel pump was it's like a $17 part from Rock Auto, Carter fuel pump, specifically for the 68. Yeah, and pretty much what it did is it solved that problem. Right, it started running right away. I took it for a test drive. I ran it for a while. I shut it off. I left it sitting there for a couple of hours. Started to back up. All the problems went away. As a matter of fact, it felt like it had a little bit more performance now that it's getting a full amount of fuel. But the biggest thing that I noticed, like visual thing that I noticed, is that filter, when you run the engine, is completely clear, as if it's empty, but it's not empty, it's actually full. Whereas before it would always feel like it's half empty. So I suspect the diaphragm on that fuel pump was on its way. It was starting to leak, it was starting to suck air in, it wasn't pumping right, and as a result, the car was just running terribly. So if I start it now, you can see it runs pretty well. Everything is, pretty much perfect on it. So if you have a vapor lock issue, don't just assume that it's vapor lock. It could be the fuel pump in itself. Especially if you have one of those filters, because that filter is supposed to eliminate vapor lock, from my understanding. And it's a fairly straightforward. It took me maybe about an hour to replace the fuel pump. Didn't take very long. It was very, very inexpensive. If you have one of these Cadillacs, just go out and buy another fuel pump for it. See how it behaves afterwards. Make sure that all the lines that are going from the fuel tank to the fuel pump are on. The rubber's new. The hoses are clamped on tight. The return's on tight. There's no opportunity for air to get in, and I think it will solve all these problems. So my initial thought was to wrap the fuel lines with this heat-proof wrap, thinking that it may be just the fuel getting hot inside the lines, but I don't think it's the case at this point. I think this car is cured. So hopefully this helped somebody. I got to tell you, driving this car and working on this car is a pleasure compared to everything else that I own. I always like to say that Europeans tend to show how smart they are by making things super complicated. Americans show how smart they are by making things super simple. And this car is really easy to work on. It's a real pleasure. And if you get yourself one of those and you have a problem with it, it's very inexpensive to solve, and it's very easy to fix. Hopefully that helps somebody, and more to come on this car as I continue to work through it. Thank you.